Hey.
Fucking sucks.
What?
This bench sucks. I have no ass, so it's like sick. Make sure you put that in the podcast, dude. I'm fucking bitching about a bench.
Hey everyone, we're here again in Film Asylum to bring you a special quarantine edition. Something different. Or quarantine special. We are your hosts, Colin Peters here.
John Rashatter.
And Jeff Manfred.
We didn't actually plan for a movie because this is different. We're Skyping now because of the incident, whatever you want to call it, that's going on. Yep. So we are actually taking this episode to give you guys some Q&A talk. And we got a handful of questions here. We're going to answer your questions.
This is exciting.
You guys ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
I'm always ready. I still hate you guys. I'm just
We're just three assholes in an asylum. That's all we are.
Or as Jeff originally wanted to call the show and describe us, three speaking dicks.
Did I say originally like three assholes in my basement?
Yeah, that's
Let's say
in a padded
my basement right now.
In a padded cell called the Loomis Room.
The Loomis Room is everywhere. Which I guess we should explain how we came up with the name of the Loomis Room, since this is a Q&A special.
Mm-hmm.
The first couple episodes, actually, Exorcist and Birdcage, were not filmed at Jeff's house. They were actually filmed at my aunt's house, or recorded, I should say, not filmed. And we migrated over to Jeff's because I work night shift, and Jeff works, 2 to 10, middle of the day, second shift, basically. And with baby Thea around, it was easy for him to keep an eye on her while we would come over and have her involved with shows, or we'd watch her. And then Jeff would go to work and we'd record some episodes and bounce. And we found that recording in his basement was where we got the best sound quality. And we thought, hey, we might as well just name this as our studio. And we were coming up with a name. And we settled on the Loomis Room because we figured what famous asylum or doctor, because most of the time it's like celebrity names or some patriarch or contributor that usually gets something named after them. And we thought of Sam Loomis from Halloween, since he was a psychiatrist and he took care of Michael Myers. And so that's why it's called the Loomis Room. And that's our studio, and that's where we record.
Yeah. I shot him 6 times!
And I wish I would have known about this prior. I would have brought the sign up. And I actually had it with us, because it's actually John.
Oh, well,
nice
yeah.
Well, you can go get it while might as well explain why the name of the production company and the name of the show is Film Asylum. We originally didn't have a name for the episodes. I mean, the show when it first started. It was just us with a podcast. That's why when you listen to us, we just say, "Hi, everybody, welcome to the podcast," because nothing was really set. But our friend Benjamin Ruth, who you guys hear pretty often, he plays Lord Damien McDonovan, who has his own YouTube channel. He was having a special where he wanted to give us a shout out because he was on our Exorcist episode, and he contacted me and said, "Hey, did you guys come up with a name for your show yet?" And I said, "Honestly, no." And he said, "Well, if you come up with a name, I'm going to give you guys a shout out on my Damien episode." Oh, here Jeff has
There's a sign.
Bam.
Yeah, I remember wood burning that.
I was going to say, made by John Rashatter.
Yeah. It's almost like when we were coming up with his name, it was like we were writing a screenplay for a movie that was like in the middle of pre-production. We were just kind of like going along as it was going along. Then eventually we came up with the title, and then we finished the screenplay as we were filming the movie. That's the way I think of it.
Yeah, because it was really off the cuff, on the go, and we were coming up with different names, and we were trying to think of combination stuff, kind of like what Quentin Tarantino did when he had his production company, A Band Apart, taking like favorite things from different movies, or like an Alice Cooper where you take two people and combine them together. One night, John and I were just spitballing everything. It was stupid stuff, and I don't even remember, but some of it was just so damn out there.
It was really out of this world. But then you said Film Asylum, and then I said, wait a minute, say that again, or maybe run it a different way? And that just stuck with us. We actually thought it was kind of funny, but then we realized, wait a minute, this actually has a lot of potential.
Yeah, Film Asylum was actually like half serious, half joking around. I was actually thinking of Batman Arkham Asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Because being a fan of psychology, I've always been fascinated with asylums and stuff, and being a horror fanatic, I always thought asylums were like super scary. And if you ever read the comic book Arkham Asylum and even played the game, asylums are scary. Hospitals are scary in general.
No, mental illness is scary.
But it's also like a place of healing. People go there really to get healed, and I mean, at times, there were people who were just thrown in there because diagnoses weren't fully understood. So, there's up and downs with it, and the Film Asylum just kind of stuck. So really, it was a bit of a fascination with my interest in psychology and my appreciation for Batman Arkham Asylum. And it was just on a whim. I just remember I texted, we all have a group chat. We pretty much talk to each other about every day.
Yeah.
And John and I were just, like I said, back and forth. And I was like, just kind of had like a brief pause. And I was like, Film Asylum. And like John said, he was like, I kind of like that.
And then you had the tagline for, we're crazy about films. And then that's when I really started taking off with it.
Yeah, I could just hear on over the text messages when I said, if you're crazy about movies, you belong here. And I could just like hear it in my head, him going, that's it, that's the tagline. And I was going to work because this was at closing in on 9:30, 10 o'clock.
I think that's when I finally answered, was around that time, because I finally had to read everything. Because
I was in the morning, and we got so excited. We were like, yo, I think we're going to settle on this. Yeah, we just got to wait for Jeff's approval. And we were all like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Jeff, you awake. Jeff,
hurry up!
And then we don't get a text right away, and we just get, I like Film Asylum.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I feel bad about that too, because like sometimes, like by the time I get your messages, it could be like 4 or 5 hours later. I'm like, shit, man, this is. I'm like,
I don't care about that. No, it's all understandable, and really, we don't care. All of us always respond back, no matter if it's like 8 or 16 hours later.
Eventually,
we always get back to each other. And the reason why we called the production company Cinema Sanitarium Productions was because there was an old rule about when you started a film production company, you always wanted to start your name of your production company with a letter closest to the beginning of the alphabet. And I think that was because if you had an ad in a paper or a phone book, you would be at the top of the list. And that's how people would find you. So as alternatives, I was looking into like other things, and then we came up with Cinema Sanitarium Productions, which is basically Film Asylum, just said differently.
Yeah,
different way of saying it.
And I actually went around and asked people. I asked my sister Farrell what she thought. I asked my supervisor at work what he thought. Family and friends, and everybody said, I think the name of the show is Film Asylum. They just thought it had a better ring, and they just liked the sound of it. And we thought Cinema Sanitarium Productions was too good of a title, so we thought, well, let's just make it the name of the production company in the show Film Asylum, and that's pretty much how it happened.
Nice.
So, question 1 down.
Mm-hmm.
All right, got another question here. How did you guys become friends? Well, Jeff and I have actually been best friends since middle school. We've known each other since 6th grade, and he's basically my unblooded brother. But I mean, my real brother's a shithead, so I actually consider Jeff my real brother.
I believe we were 12 when we actually met. And I think it was wrestling that brought us together.
Yeah, it was. I had a WWF at the time, Kane action figure and a card, and he kept on stealing it from me. And then he'd give it back, and then he'd steal it again.
Dude, the Brothers of Destruction, man.
Yeah.
But Colin, your biological brother has the luxury of being in every single one of our videos.
Yeah, doesn't he? Oh, yeah, that's another trivia for everybody. The guy at the end of our videos that does the, oh, please, somebody help me. Yeah, unfortunately, that's my real brother. But explaining that's something else.
Yeah. That's our version of I'm rich, biatch. Or sit, Ubu, sit, good boy.
Yeah, that's just our way of closing the show out. And because he's freaking out, it's appropriate because it's an asylum.
Yeah.
Theme show. The eyes. Ah! And John and I actually became friends at college at DeSales University, coincidentally, what I'm wearing.
Dude, that is a shameless fucking plug right there.
I didn't even plan that. I like the sweatshirt because red's my favorite color. So.
Yeah. I think it was our junior year. I know, like, you had asked me to do like a short film scene with it was me basically being like a creepy passenger in a car when you were simulating like a shot in the studio where she's the taxi driver, I'm just the creepy passenger, and you just wanted me to improvise. And then our friendship just kind of blossomed from there, our love for Alice Cooper and horror movies and just wanting to make more films, because I was in the theater department.
That wasn't my project.
That wasn't your I thought that was your project.
No, that was somebody else's project, and we were in it. That's where we first met, but I just helped out on that.
Okay.
That's how John and I first got to know each other, was on this project. I think it was a public service announcement.
Yeah, it was. That sounds like it.
And then John and I had a couple classes in between there, and then the dorm that we lived in the following year.
Best ever.
That was the best time.
That was our second home.
We had a damn good group of guys that year, and we were tight, man. All of us were really tight. I mean, we had a couple people that, but
like an 8th.
No, yeah, that was a damn good time. Hell, even Jeff came a couple times. I don't think Jeff actually came to the dorm with us, but he did stop at the sales, and I showed him the editing suites and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. See, because I think the first time, Jeff, you and I met was the Alice Cooper concert when we went to the House of Blues in Atlantic City. Yeah, that was the first time.
Well, the time that I was at Colin's house and you showed up with one glove, and all I said to you was, "Hey, say I got to return some videotapes."
We say that about John because John has a bit of a resemblance to Christian Bale.
I get it. That's actually also, like on my resume, professional Christian Bale impersonator.
Also, John, we made a Batman short in college, and John actually played Batman.
That was a lot of fun. Long hours, but hey, we got it done.
We finished it during finals week, which was... I don't recommend that for everybody because that was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But we got it done.
We didn't quit.
Like it, but we got it done. Oh, and Ben Ruth, who's Lord Damien, was Joker, and he actually
Mhm.
helped with the costumes. Batman costume itself was wasn't great. It was like a mix of football
We had
pants
what we
and
had. Yeah, like
uh,
the armor was like paintball attire, I think it was. Like the chest plate
yeah.
was, and then I forget where he got the cape. But Ben did his own makeup. He designed the flower to actually squirt something out of it. So he actually did quite a bit
Ben
beyond
made
just
the
playing Joker.
Ben made the cape.
Oh, he
The
made. Okay,
mask,
he did make the cape. Okay.
uh, the the mask we originally molded John's head, but we couldn't find a way to actually put the latex over top properly. So the mask didn't turn out the way we wanted, and we wound up just buying a regular Batman
Yeah.
mask. But because of copyright issues, we cut the ears off and we extended them, made them longer. And if you look at the video closely, you'll see there's like a little bit of like red tint on the mask, and
Hmm.
that was because we wanted to change it up, and it almost gave like a not quite a glitter effect, but it was something different. So, I mean, the project itself's already copyrighted, but it was just a little stuff to protect us in case anything would happen, but
Exactly.
nothing really happened. So that's the beginning of how we all met. And I guess that follows up with where we came up with the podcast. It's basically, we all get together constantly, and the thing we do is we just talk about movies. We have movies on and talk about them, do like our own little mystery science theater thing, or we do little breakdowns while the movie's going on, and we say this happened behind the scenes, or somebody else would say, well, this person worked with this person, and it's kind of like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, or whatever the name of that game is. And
For us, it's Bruce Willis.
That does seem to be a common theme throughout our podcast. Ever since the whole Die Hard episode, it just seems that we're kind of making correlations back to Bruce Willis at this point.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis is our unofficial mascot.
Yeah. Be
Like, if I
honest,
go bald,
like
I don't care because Bruce Willis is bald, right, Jeff?
Exactly. Look at this bitch. It's shut.
he had a flowing head of hair in Die Hard. I mean, hey, if Jerry Seinfeld was the president of the '90s, Bruce Willis was the Secretary of Defense for the '90s. I mean, seriously.
But the podcast was also another combination of things. It was I was listening to a podcast called Something to Wrestle With because I'm a huge WWE fan, and they were giving little tidbits behind the scenes. And of course, I listened to Joe Rogan, and I liked how he always had some intelligent conversations and would be insightful, as well as they joke around and say funny things without it being too like over the top or whatever. And there was actually a YouTube channel called OSW, called Old School Wrestling, and I stumbled upon it because I wanted to watch the old 80s pay-per-views and stuff, and it was the only thing I could find on YouTube at the time.
Mm.
And I heard these guys, and they sounded like they were from Scotland or Ireland. I don't really remember. But it was basically, I mean, if you listen to that was just Jeff, John, and I. And what they would do is they would tell jokes, almost like it was a party. They would, I think they would like talk about each match and break it down, and then after the match they'd say, "What do you guys think?" And they'd say, "Oh, like out of 5 stars, I give it a 2 or a 4." And they would rate the whole pay-per-view afterwards and say, "What all did you like? What all didn't you like? What the one thing that killed it for you?" Stuff like that. And there were just some other little tidbits, like Cody Leach on YouTube was another guy. He does a lot of good reviews, and I really respect what he does, and I liked how he has a certain rating. So I thought we should do our own thing and came up with our favorite and least favorite scenes, and I thought that was a nice little touch. It was different, and usually we bring something different to the table when we talk about different scenes. So it was like, okay, we we got something here that was pretty cool. You know, it was different, and not only did we just talk about movies themselves, but we talk about stuff behind the scenes and things that we don't know. Because honestly, we don't rehearse the show. I mean,
No.
we even said we want genuine surprises. So when you hear us act surprised, or in Jeff's case, angry, that's really him. Like, I've had people who listen to the show and they're like, yo, that one friend of yours, he's absolutely hilarious. And I said, that's just how he is. That's literally how Jeff is.
Yo, I'm just that passionate about hating on stuff. It just makes it easier.
And here's the really funny thing about Jeff. He has seen more shitty movies than both of us combined.
Listen, that's what I've been doing this whole quarantine, is catching up on shitty movies. I watched it this morning, and I'm like, why am I watching this? It's like, what the fuck was it? It was Underwater with Kristen Stewart. I'm like, why the fuck am I watching this? I'm like, oh wait,
I wanted to see that one
right now.
Did you watch Incubus?
Yeah, with what's his name?
Robert Englund and Joey Fatone.
I have a story about that, actually. I watched that movie after meeting Robert Englund.
Okay.
And then the next horror movie convention I went to, we were there, and this guy starts asking me about that movie. I fucking told him this movie fucking sucked. Like, the way it was edited, the acting, everything. Come to find out, it was the writer-director of the movie, and I didn't know. Like, he's like pulling on my sleeve, like trying to get me away from him. She's like, yo, then I come to find out that's the director. And she's like, yo, I was trying to tell you this whole time. And I'm like, listen, that movie just sucked. I didn't even care.
Like I said, that's just him.
And these angry lash outs, they're now having an impact on Colin and I, because I'm starting to get a little angry at times during some of these movie rants.
Oh,
I learned from the best.
People quote Jeff the most. I mean, I do get some people that say to me, yo, she fucked Kyle MacLachlan. But it's funny because Jeff's continuous tag is, so you're telling me.
I feel like there's another one too. Like, there's two things I say right before either a rant comes or a smart-ass comment. It just, but so you're gonna tell me just seems to be the one that always is like, well, this is what the fuck it is.
It's either, so you're telling me, or it's, dude, this movie just fucking sucks, man.
Why do you guys love horror movies, comic book movies, and Bruce fucking Willis?
We kind of touched on that a little bit, but we'll get more into that, I'm sure.
Well, I'll start off by saying, have you fucking watched Die Hard? Come on.
I know. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. That's why there's a slew of imitators in all action movies.
What are you talking about? Fucking moonlighting. That's all I have to say.
No.
Yeah,
that's not his fault. That movie was not his fault.
But Moonlighting was
show.
that show he did with Sybil Shepherd.
Oh, I was thinking, never mind. I was thinking of something else, Color of the Night or something like that. It was like some other Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed Color of Night. That was pretty interesting.
That movie was not his fault. Even though the movie wasn't great, he was like the best part of that.
I would say,
Not
honestly,
everybody. Great.
after we did the Die Hard episode, we were talking about moonlighting. I ended up finding episodes on YouTube and was watching it. Like, my wife
I watched them too.
watching, and I'm like, I didn't tell her. She's like, and then she sees Bruce Willis. She's like, "Are you fucking serious right now?" And I was like, "Yes."
I like Bruce Willis because I think he's very talented. I also appreciate that out of like celebrity stuff, he's got a pretty cool demeanor and personality, and he doesn't like ever really have a bad reputation. I think there was actually some spat with him and Kevin Smith where they had a little issue.
The movie Cop Out. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was some other movie I heard that he was. I think it was Expendables 3. He was difficult about money. that was supposed to be offered to him. It was like a lot for a small part, and that's why he wasn't in it. There's just some little things I heard about him, but like hell, right now I heard that him and Demi Moore like combine like all their family stuff and whoever they're with together to be together during the quarantine. And after all these years, I think that's like just totally cool to see that people like those two in Hollywood can still coincide. And that just goes to show, that sounds a really good message. That just goes to show that you can still be good friends and companions even after marriage. It's not just like a one and done thing. But I also like Bruce Willis because he looks like an everyday guy, but he still looks like he can kick your ass, and he's funny, he's talented. I don't recommend listening to his albums, like Jeff said in our Die Hard episode.
The fact that that's on Spotify, and I'm like, I didn't know there was that many albums. I'm like, why am I listening to this? Like, I can't right now. It's bad.
That's good, God.
But Die Hard is also just one of those like awesome movies, and John McClane just is like so separate from other action heroes and even other action heroes that he's played. And I think it's a very quintessential action hero that was needed at that time, because Stallone and Arnold were the same. But I mean, hey, Die Hard really sticks out. And I mean, that's like a go-to action movie easily. I mean, you can quote it so easily. The action and it's fun. The acting's great. You know, from Bonnie Bedelia to Alan Rickman. I mean, and you know, of course, Bruce Willis became a hero, and you're rooting for the guy. And in a lot of movies, I feel like, and he'll find a way to kick your ass and make you laugh. So yeah, that's me on Bruce Willis. You guys?
Cool. I mean, when I was in high school, I think even in the summertime, because we had this debate that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, which it very much is, it's still a fun summer popcorn actioner. I used to watch that movie constantly. I would never get sick of it when I was in high school watching it in the summertime. I'm currently a professional actor, and I actually had a chance to jump on an opportunity to audition with Erie Casting to appear in the film Glass in a small part. Didn't get it, but I was able to be a stand-in for Spencer Tree Clark. So I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that I have an opportunity to be maybe 20 feet away from Bruce motherfucking Willis for maybe a day or two? And yeah, I got to be 20 feet away from Bruce motherfucking Willis. I didn't talk to him. I mean, the man was great spirit on set. Like he was in between takes. He was very lighthearted and just making sure everyone had a good time. M. Night is, you know, running the show very professionally, and Spencer Tree Clark got really, really excited about one scene, and Bruce Willis just comes up to him and goes, "You are having way too much fun on this set. You got to calm down, young man." And then everybody was just breaking out laughing. I mean, he really knew how to set the tone for everything. And I mean, yeah, like Colin was saying before, that he is like an everyday guy. We mentioned Schwarzenegger and Stallone, two guys that were up for the role of John McClane, and I'm glad they didn't get it, because just having Bruce Willis and his physical presence on stage set the tone for how we view action stars. And it's amazing that you don't have to have the guys with the big, you know, baby oil rubbed all over their muscles and all that, you know, muscle tone, things like that. I mean, Bruce Willis is ripped, but he's not like gargantuan. You don't need that. And he proved that. And there's no other person that I would rather see in that role than Bruce motherfucking Willis. And ever since that movie, I just wanted to see everything else that he was in. He elevates even the worst movies to something better just by his presence alone. That's my 2 cents.
Because it's Bruce motherfucking Willis. That's why.
You know, honestly, I don't think anybody can say anything bad about Bruce Willis. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of shitty movies lately because they're just straight to DVD or streaming, where the hell it is nowadays. But, like, honestly, he still makes it fun. Come on, I still enjoy the new Death Wish with him. He kind of fits the role perfectly. Older guy taking on younger kids. Still gets his ass kicked, but the job still gets done. But, come on, Die Hard. I can't even say anything mean about that movie.
You don't need anything else except Die Hard. That's all you need.
Plus, you know, 2 bald guys is always fun. But I will talk shit on his music career from here until the day I die.
Jeff, go to sleep with one eye open.
I think I'm gonna edit this piece out because I feel like once this goes live, he's gonna hunt me down.
If it makes you feel better, I actually do have some dirt on him when he was filming Glass in Allentown, but I can't say it. So I'll stop right there. Horror movies and comic book movies, why do we like them so much?
Man. I know for me, in terms of horror, ever since just like being 6 years old and just being a fascination with monsters, I think every October I had to have a Halloween party because it was the one month and holiday that I just lived for. It's something that even at that young age, I'm like, I could celebrate this until I die. I don't know what it is, but I think just with horror movies itself, for me, it's the idea that the imagination is endless and the fact that there are so many subgenres that can be categorized in horror. And the fact that you could make a movie like Alien be like Jaws, but in space. The fact that there's no right or wrong answer. I mean, there are wrong answers because there's some really shitty horror movies out there, but it's just it's almost indescribable on what makes horror so cool, because I guess it's also the thing that I love being scared. I love, gripping my seat and, feeling tension just coursing through my veins and just not knowing when the bomb's going to blow up or when the monster's going to show up or when our heroes, if they're going to get out of the situation alive or dead. I don't know. There's just something about it. And the fact that you can get clever filmmakers out there to do a great job at communicating their stories. We're starting to see some better filmmakers, and I think they're starting to make better crafted movies. There are some shitty ones out there because they're always going to exist, but it's just inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it because they don't get the tropes and the cliches. They just think that's what all horror movies should be. That's not the case. But we're starting to see some newer and more inventive ideas, and that gives me a little bit more faith. It's just something that's indescribable, but I love it.
I'm going to say, honestly, horror has always been one of my favorite genres because I like to bitch about movies. And that is the easiest, by far the easiest one to bitch about. It's like low-hanging fruit at this point. But it also is a down point because I feel like horror now in like mainstream is dying because look, man, whatever is coming to mainstream is not becoming any good. I would say, like, dude, even the It movies, like, It Part 1 was amazing, Part 2 was kind of lacking. It was missing, like, 45 minutes to, between the kid getting eaten and jumping to kill Pennywise. That bothered me because, like, he fucking got mad over one situation right there. Fuck that. Get out of here. But anyway, it's always going to be a focal point. Like, I've been watching it since I was a kid. Like, shit, I've got tattoos of different horror monsters. Like, the slasher genre is one of my favorites because, yes, it's predictable, but yet it's fun to watch. Like, no, it's not scary because it's a dude in a mask. Like, he may have supernatural powers, he may not. It's just fucking... At one point, you're going to see tits, and someone's going to... and the car's not going to start. That's what's going to happen. But now with everyone doing all of the possessions, the exorcists, the haunted houses, it's fucking getting old. They need something new. Like, that's the other problem right now because everyone's like, oh shit, fucking ghosts are selling. Well, there you go. Now I've got something to bitch out. As you can see, this is not fucking even like a bad situation. I'm just like constantly mad about everything. Like, even when Colin brought up earlier, like, we are a fan. I'm a huge fan of Mystery Science Theater. Like, they always have like bad movies. I'll watch it. My daughter watches it. My wife watches it, and it's a fun thing to do because, like, yes, that's how I feel about these fucking movies because, like, I can't shut up while we're watching them.
Okay, for me, I've grown up with horror movies basically my whole life. I remember learning about Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers, and then I was always fascinated with the characters in the movies that no matter how many times you kill them, they keep coming back, and that was movie magic. As crappy as a lot of those movies are, I always got fascinated by well, how are they going to stop them next? And another thing about horror films was that in the 80s, they really brought out some really cool practical effects with the makeup. And that fascinated me. Because to me, I think movies really are the whole shebang. I mean, I know there's, comedy and drama and all those other different genres. But when you make a movie, it's just like the fun is seeing what you can do. And in horror, you have this like multitude of stuff that you can do between makeup, story, special effects. How you can have, a love story, and with horror, you can find something beautiful and something dark, and it's like really meaningful. Like when the priest sacrifices himself for Reagan in The Exorcist, he did that to save the kid, and he died in the process doing it. I do believe that some of the older movies, like from the 60s and the 70s, were in such a transition period. And for anybody who has studied film, a lot of those old school filmmakers like William Friedkin and Steven Spielberg, Richard Donner, Wes Craven, they really dive deep into the story, and that's why a lot of their stuff has lived on. Like they knew how to scare you with just telling a story. Like look at a movie like Halloween. That's just like great storytelling, and I mean we can talk all day long about how great of a movie Halloween is.
Yeah.
But it was always like a whole thing, and I just love the aesthetics of like gothic looking stuff. I mean, I'm a huge Batman fan, and in Tim Burton's Batman, I just always loved the way Gotham City looked. As weird as it is, I think tombstones and graveyards are actually like a beautiful place because yet they're kind of peaceful, really.
Yeah.
It's like that line in The Crow where Brandon Lee and Rochelle Davis are talking, and she said, "You're probably going to ask why I'm sleeping in the cemetery in the middle of the night, right?" And he goes, "It's the safest place in the world to be." And there is like a beauty for one last hurrah, kind of for a loved one. Where I know, like when my grandfather, we were for my grandmother's funeral. I remember because he was such a perfectionist. He had his own business, and he said when we were all pallbearers, he was looking at us and he was like, "Make sure you do it right." And so he wanted to make sure she was taken care of to the very end. And so a lot of people, that's important. But I also really like the old castles and haunted mansions.
Oh yeah.
Just like the spider webs and bats and jack-o'-lanterns. It's like another reason why I love Halloween so much.
Right.
And there's always so much to a scary story because there's like just a lot of substance in scary stories that it's that you don't like. It's like so constricting, and you don't want to hear it because you're so scared, but yet you're like, but I want to know more.
You're right. When this is done right, it looks cool. The imagery is so cool.
It's very cool. I mean, even looking back on it now, a movie like Nightmare on Elm Street, that's just such a great movie, but they didn't have the money or the production value to make it as great as it really could be, because it was so independent. Nobody wanted to give it a chance. And you look at it now, and it really is so dated. And when they made that horrendous reboot, what they really should have done was just have Robert Englund and just redid the whole thing shot for shot, because there was nothing that you needed to do to change in that movie except just give it what it got. And it pisses me off that there's so much computer now in horror movies and in movies in general that are so action-packed. And I feel like it takes away from the movie magic. Because, I mean, when you watch like Tim Burton's Batman, there's a lot of really cool stuff in there that's practical effects, and I think it has longevity rather than just, green screen, computer, and the animation look.
Yeah.
But growing up with horror films, loving the aesthetics, loving the how do you stop the unstoppable objects and the makeup, all that stuff. I just love it. I think they're great stories too to tell. Horror movies are our modern day scary stories by the campfire. And I love Halloween.
Same here. Same here. Movie and holiday. Oh man, good stuff.
Who doesn't love Halloween? Like, there is something wrong with you because it's a fun time. I always enjoy it. Obviously, the three of us do it.
Yeah. I will stare at you like lobsters coming out of your ears if you said you don't like Halloween. I'm that guy.
Hey, I bit the bullet for the bet, and I dressed as Lady Gaga for Halloween because of this podcast.
I was a terrible, shitty Nomi Malone.
I was the smart one. I didn't make a stupid bet.
You had to say something nice about that movie.
I can't say anything nice about that movie. That's the problem.
You repeated what you said about it before in the podcast. It was a loophole. You cheated.
All right, as far as why we love comic book movies so much, again, that was something I just grew up with. I mean, I still remember as a little kid, watching the old Adam West Batman movies, and my mom and dad would always tell me about how I was 2 years old and they took me to the drive-ins, and I actually saw the first Batman movie in the drive-in. And ever since then, Batman just kind of like became my guy from all these years. And he's basically like a James Bond of a superhero, and he's got a really cool backstory. He's got cool villains. And I, of course, finding out they were comic book characters, I just got into other comic books then and got into Spider-Man, Captain America. Spawn was another good one. Superman, of course. And another reason why I love comic books and comic book movies is because I'm a big art fanatic. I think they do such a good job at being so imaginative, and like some of the art is just absolutely amazing. I mean, I try to emulate some stuff in my drawings because I draw as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys are really good, like Alan Moore, Todd McFarlane, Frank Miller, and of course guys like Jack Kirby, from like years past, and you get some other cool guys too, even now, like Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Although I forget which one of those. They might be more writers, but comic book heroes. I'm also just fascinated by like protecting others and doing the right thing and good moral standards. I also look into the standards of what they do and what they practice as kind of like modern day preaching. Like if you can't take it as like a church goer, you can take the message through what they're saying in comic books and bring that into your life and try to bring some good into it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of those guys have executed stories like that really well. And also even when it looks like the hero's defeated and they come back and rise to the occasion and they overcome even odds that you can't believe it, they do. And it's like, well, that gives us motivation then to do it if you want to take it like that. And I think they have matured now to where it's not just nerds or, like the Dungeons and Dragons type of guys. There are guys I know now that are like bodybuilders that are like, yeah, man, they wear a Superman shirt or a Hulk shirt, and that's motivation for them and stuff. Mm-hmm. Athletes, use comic book characters now as motivation. So it's really neat to see how it's evolved, and it did go from this like underground sort of thing with beautiful art and awesome stories to now it's mainstream, and groups of people who thought it was geeky and it was stupid now are like, no, man, this stuff is actually really cool.
Yeah. Jeff?
Oh man, I was waiting for you to go. I'm so used to our orders, like calling John me. I'm like, fuck it.
I want to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, I think so. But like honestly, dude, I've loved comic books since I was a kid. Like I remember when I lived in Florida, actually reading the X-Men comics. But it wasn't until I was 6 or 7 until I actually got into Batman. I remember watching Batman Returns a lot, and that's what really got me into the whole comic world. And at that time, though, we also had the X-Men comic on Fox, cartoon. We had Spider-Man. So like the '90s cartoons really brought it in. Like Batman animated series, like we just talked about that series not too long ago, and it still stands up. Like the art, everything. I'm glad that it's standing the test of time. But like now with everything is starting to get oversaturated with the comic book movies. But it's cool seeing like different takes on them. Like you've already heard me before bitch about Marvel, kind of like almost wrecking the comic book movies for everybody else, because now everyone wants Marvel movies. But like honestly, it's like yes, I'm happy to see all these characters out there. I'm glad that they're coming, but it's like we don't need 37 movies.
Making it for everybody.
Over the course of 10 years, we got what, 23, 24 movies? All right, it's a lot of fucking movies, all right?
More than that, yeah.
Even on DC's side, like yes, they're trying to pump out, try to keep up, but like honestly, like the source material itself is so much darker. Like there's so much depth involved, and it's like there's almost like a yin and yang of each other, because like yes, they have a lighter side, and DC's the darker side. So like there's a lot of different concepts. Like I prefer the stories from DC because they're dealing with the practicality of a universe with heroes, and the whole like these heroes actually do die. They're not gonna keep coming back. Where Marvel's like, well, they're mutants. Somehow they're fucking gonna come back. Shit like that, man. It's like it's cool to see all this. It's cool seeing coming up. Like I really didn't become a huge Superman fan until around the time Kill Bill came out. I would say actually Kill Bill 2 is when states that Superman is not his alter ego. Clark Kent is the costume. He's showing how weak he actually views us as people. And that blew my fucking mind, because like, Clark Kent is the costume. I did not even put it in that aspect. It wasn't until like actually seeing that, it actually opened my eyes to like, holy crap, man, this alien is now that's how he fucking views us? Man, boom. I was like,
mind blown.
Yeah, like it's a Quentin Tarantino to fucking make me like Superman, all right?
He's got a good birthday too.
Yeah. I was like, and if you've heard us talk how like Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck are like pretty much our Batman and Superman right now, because they do fit what we've seen in the comics. It's seen everything coming through. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman has been amazing. Like seeing her on
She's great.
Time was amazing. Like I was happy to see the way she portrayed everything. Like I'm excited for 1984 to come out. I'm hoping it still comes out. But
it will. August is when it's coming out now. August 14th, I think, something like that.
Listen, it'll probably be on streaming at this point. Don't let them lie to you.
No. Fuck no. They want money. No way. Fuck no. They put it on streaming straight away. But I know for me, I didn't really get into comics right away because I was always, when I was younger, I was a massive video game nerd. I play a lot of violent video games, Mortal Kombat being one of them. But I like to draw my favorite characters from video games. And ever since then, my friends introduced me, hey, why don't you think about taking a look at comic books and taking a look at the illustrations that they have on presentation? I'm like, all right, I don't know. I don't really know anything about them, because the first time I ever saw Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, I was scared out of my mind because I thought he died twice. How can you kill Batman? I was actually terrified when I thought that they killed Michael Keaton in that movie. But then he was faking it. He was playing possum and then just beat the shit out of everybody. But then that was the first comic that I gravitated towards, was Batman, because I like the dark and the brooding stuff and the violence and the fact that he's not your typical superhero. He's basically just a man with a cowl and a cape, and he knows kung fu. He can beat the shit out of people. That's awesome. And ever since then, I started gravitating more towards other sort of like brooding and dark vigilante type heroes. I was always gravitating towards DC because that's where it was. But I was like, all right, well, what does Marvel have to offer? Then I started reading comics from The Punisher and from Daredevil because they're just men. They're not these extraterrestrial beings like Thor, or they don't have these abilities where they could just, summon a hammer in their hands, or they have the abilities of a god. No, they're just men that are human just like us. And I mean, Daredevil is pretty much the equivalent of Batman, except he's not rich. He's a lawyer and he's blind. I mean, that was one that a lot of people didn't really gravitate towards because everyone was like, it's all about Spider-Man. It's all about Captain America. That's where it is. And like, don't you guys want to look at Daredevil? Who? No. Like, but then you watch the Netflix show Daredevil and you realize how stupid you are because that's how badass the character can be. That's a show that I hope it gets more seasons. I don't know if it will, but I guess that's where I kind of started out with in terms of my affinity for comic book characters, because I think of it as an iceberg. Yeah, when you look at illustrations in comic books, it's very pretty on the surface, but a lot of people tend to not look underneath the iceberg on the different layers. When you look at X-Men, you look at the race classes and how they're pretty much being treated differently from other people. Kind of like what's happened with certain ethnicities in our history. How they're viewed as monsters, they're viewed as mutants when they're just people, just like you and me. There's a lot of those themes under the surface that a lot of people don't tend to look because they think, well, comic books are just for kids. No, there's some really good stories out there that don't get a lot of attention and don't get a lot of focus. It's only when I started getting older, when I started appreciating more and more of this. Why aren't these being explored more? And then I'm glad to see that there are some people like Kevin Smith and a lot of other people who are showing a very good affinity for comic books, that there's a lot of good stories to tell. And some people just overlook them, just like by looking at an iceberg. They don't look underneath the surface. And that's what I think comic books have to offer, as well as the films, some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, you're right. That's another big thing about comic books is that they do get into political talk without picking sides. And, we've said on the show that we don't like talking politics. I mean, to tell you the truth, the three of us hate politics in general. We actually just want to entertain more and give you guys some interesting tidbits of behind the scenes and intellectual opinions. But a lot of comic books do bring up political points, like John said about X-Men and the racial discriminations and stuff. They kind of have like a weird way of kind of sidestepping it without being so direct about that sort of thing. And that's what I think. I really appreciate that. And like Jeff said, like how somebody from outside can view us as weak, and yet that's our savior. I mean, I don't know what anybody's religious beliefs are, but, whatever you believe in a higher power, if you do believe in that, imagine what they're thinking of us. It's, like Jeff said.
Like I said, Tarantino, man, taught me
Tarantino.
something.
March 27th.
Honestly, I think Kevin Smith is probably the biggest nerd out there, but nobody realizes it until recently when we did Comic Book Men. And
his daughter's name is Harley Quinn.
Oh, like based on the reboot, he's actually getting all these people who come in to his movies, like different superheroes. But I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
He gave Ben Affleck a hug after he saw him in Batman outfit.
I know, right? He was like in tears.
Seriously. I think it was actually, wasn't it Kevin Smith's idea to do the voice modulation for Ben Affleck? I think that was... Yeah. Was that his idea? I think that was his idea to throw into the movie because it would make more sense. I'm glad they did because that was awesome.
Instead of back cancer. There's so much out there, like, as I'm like blocking the camera.
It could be a whole nother episode just by talking about comic movies in general. Seriously.
Comic books and horror movies we could have a whole episode in general about. I mean, this is really just like a gist.
I mean, we have the hours. We have all the hours we want.
I would say
Seriously.
honestly, like, we could spend all day talking about comic books and horror movies because, like, that is what we enjoy the most. Like, there's nothing that's gonna change about it. Like, yes, I will bitch and moan about certain things because yeah, we're fucking nerds. Don't let our appearances fucking try to sway you. We are fucking nerds.
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Hey,
Nothing wrong with that.
I say on my Instagram account, my bio, I'm a professional nerd.
Seriously. Damn it, I cried when they canceled Comic-Con. I knew it was going to happen, but god damn it, I shed a tear when that happened.
Listen,
Hey,
that announcement
God has
came
nothing
2
to do
days
with
ago.
I almost cried when Superman died in Batman vs Superman. That's how dedicated I was. All right.
All right. Here's a funny story about Jeff and I. Kind of goes back to our horror talk. Such a huge horror fan. I could not wait till Freddy versus Jason came out, and we made an event out of going to this, man. We were so pumped and so excited to see this movie, and about 10 minutes in, anybody who's seen it, I don't know too many people who hate it who love both genres of both characters, but at one point Jeff leans in and he tries to ask me a question, and like it was like a millisecond. I just hear this, "Hey, what up?" And I just, it's like, no way, man.
Dude, I saw that movie 3 times in one day when it came out. I saw it 3 times in one day. That was an event for me.
I saw Batman Begins twice in one day. It was like at night when it first came out, and then my sister was actually with me. It was me, my sister, my brother, and my cousin, and we all left going, "Damn, man, that was really good." And then he wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, but she told my brother-in-law, "Hey, that Batman Begins movie is really good." And he's like, "Hey, you want to go see it?" And she's like, "Yeah, let me call Colin." And so she gave me a call and was like, "You want to go see it?" I'm like, does a bear shit in the woods?
Yeah, didn't we see it like 2 days later too? Like, I think,
we did.
I think that was my first too.
And we laughed in the theater when Scarecrow got zapped in the face, and everybody actually looked at us like, "What's wrong with these two guys?"
We started laughing prior to the scene happening because we knew it was coming, and it's the funniest fucking scream you'll ever hear in your life.
I'm here to. And Liam Neeson with that like size 20 shoe to Christian Bale's sternum.
Good stuff.
Yeah, good times.
Good stuff.
This question is actually directed just towards me. It pertains to our Blair Witch Project episode. It's Colin. Why did you say every movie doesn't have to have a happy ending? All right. One problem that we are trying to fix with the show is we tend to cut each other off a lot in mid-conversation, or when we're getting to a point we're trying to stop. But what I was saying was John and Ben. Ben was playing Lord Dane and McDonovan in that episode. They were against it. John and I were for Blair Witch, that it was a good movie. They didn't, and Jeff and Ben didn't like it.
I still don't like it. Fuck off.
But one of the big things that they were saying was that the mystery isn't solved. It's an unsolved mystery. And John and I were saying, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having a movie that has an unsolved mystery at the end? Mm-hmm. That's like, to me, it was like saying every movie should have a happy ending. And I was like, it's the movie's different in itself. I don't understand why it's such a big thing that it has to be like, why everything has to be answered, everything has to be solved. We did have a talk before where the Blair Witch sequels, they didn't answer anything. It could have been different if the sequels actually do what sequels should do and progress the story, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Then I can understand why there's more frustration there. I still enjoy Blair Witch as a whole.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the open-ended mystery and the oh, what does the witch look like? What does it doesn't look like? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it just adds
Yeah.
more to the imagination because, you know, some good horror movies, that it is just what's up to your imagination. Like in Halloween, what did Michael Myers actually do to people behind the scenes?
We don't need to know.
What did Freddy Krueger do to Glenn after he sucked him into the bed? It's that
It's
stuff.
better not knowing.
That's how I kind of took it, and with that open-ended mystery at the very end, and having that like in the trailers and the archive footage where you see the like the crime scene investigators with the rubber gloves and black and white footage take the dirty film canisters and the videotapes. It is kind of like well, what happened to them? Where are their bodies? Where did they find them if that house was a ghost house?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody usually is on the move for a happy ending, and to me, I'm like, that gets boring. You can't always have a happy ending.
That's not always real life.
I mean, and it's cool when it's a surprise. If you don't have a happy ending, I mean, what would be the point? Like, if we had a happy ending for Avengers Infinity War, what would be the point of Endgame?
That was a happy ending. What are you talking about?
It was a happy ending for Thanos.
But, you know, it's stuff like that, yeah, it does lead to more questions. But there are sometimes good movies that bomb at the box office that have open-ended endings, and we don't get any answers to them at all.
Yeah.
But like Jeff did say, and Ben said, Blair Witch really is more of like a radio play story. Like, the story, I think, is better than the movie itself.
Mm-hmm. The lore, yeah.
But even Hollywood, no matter what, they'll take a book and make a shitty movie out of it. Like, I don't care for the Lord of the Rings. So, hate me all you want. Oh, I want to see those comments. I dare you. Put those comments in the section.
I love the trilogy, but hey, film is subjective. You're allowed to like something or not like something. If you don't like Lord of the Rings, it's not your cup of tea. You have to like it.
I was more mad about The Hobbit, you know, a 200-page book.
That's what I was more mad about, too. I think Guillermo del Toro should have directed that movie and just have it be one movie because the book was one book. You could easily make one movie out of a 350-page book. No, you spread it out to 3 2.5-hour-long movies and just filled it with a bunch of shit.
Even the fucking trees walked in those movies.
I was also very pissed off about the last movie's title, The Battle of the Five Armies. Why did you call it that? Why'd you call it The Battle of the Five Armies? Just call it what you were going to call it before, There and Back Again. Just call it There and Back Again, but you changed it in the final 11th hour. Ugh, don't get me started, but yeah. Lord of the Rings trilogy, good. Hobbit, why was it 3 movies? Because of money. And that's exactly why we got a sequel to Blair Witch. Money. It made $248 million worldwide, so we got a sequel, and they rushed it because the studio didn't know what the hell to do, and it should never have been a franchise. Just been one movie. I would have been happy with just one Blair Witch movie, and then that's it. But no, that's not what happens.
Oh, and by the way, Todd McFarlane from McFarlane Toys did make a Blair Witch figure, so I actually put that in with the editing video. I think when Jeff was talking about we don't see shit. I put the figure that Todd McFarlane made of the concepts of the witch in there.
Oh man!
Because I was a smart ass. All right, here's a couple questions. These two kind of go hand in hand. How do you decide what movies to talk about? What movies can we expect to listen to next?
I know one movie that we've been toying around with was Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was one movie that we've been discussing before. And there was also the idea of a retrospect review of TMNT in terms of what it meant for us growing up in terms of the comics, the toys, and then the movies, even going into some of the other films that have come out in recent memory. That was one thing we talked about. And we also we've been toying around also the idea of, no pun intended, toying around, the idea of doing topics, whether it's like remakes versus originals, or what it means to be a fanboy, what it means to not be a fanboy or be accused of one. Comic book movies in general, that was one. Yeah, like I said, we can make an entire episode of just comic book movies and horror movies. We could fill a slot for 12 hours if we wanted to, just talking about those two topics. Those are things that we've been discussing, but those are the movies that we would like to get to at some point in the future. And also, we've been doing a lot of recent films too, so that might also be something else that we can talk about. I mean, 2020, if there's a recent movie that we would like to talk about or discuss, because we've already discussed Joker, that's being one of them. That's the most recent one we've talked about, was in 2019. So we'll see what 2020 has to offer in terms of new releases that we want to discuss. So,
a thing about the podcast is we don't actually record on microphones. We just record on our phones.
Mm-hmm.
And I take the audio from each of us and I sync them all up, and then I edit to who talks what. Because we didn't know if this thing was going to take off, and it's been growing. So, and like we said before, we really enjoy doing it. We appreciate everybody who's enjoying listening to us. We are looking into microphones at some point. I think once we get subscribers that hit 1,000, we'll probably take it more serious and go more professional with it.
Yeah.
Also, we actually know some people who have also done some other professional work. We'd like to see if we can try to get them to join in somehow and talk movies, talk about experiences, stuff like that. Might be interesting. Otherwise, when we talk about movies, it's just kind of like a mood, like sometimes we'll spitball, what do you guys think about, I think recently we said like RoboCop was one, Raiders of the Lost Ark was a discussion. Like, we wanted to do that in December, and we just kind of like kept pushing it. I think originally we were going to do Raiders before Die Hard, but
we're like, nah, Die Hard, Christmas movie, Die Hard.
But another reason was because we got conflicting schedules too. I mean, John has theater and film jobs, and sometimes he has to like be in Philly or out of state, and sometimes with the way my work schedule is, I used to, it's a little different, but I could work overtime and I would stay over in the morning, or I would go in early. Or it's not uncommon that I was working a minimum of 48 hours a week, and I'm mainly night shift. So sometimes I'd work 60, sometimes 80 hours, and doing a podcast and editing is kind of hard. But we still managed to talk to each other and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And we just kind of go, okay, well, I like it, but sometimes it's maybe not the feel for a time of season, or maybe we say, well, we talked about something we all like, maybe we need something that you guys don't like. I think we talked about guilty pleasure movies. Was one. Hey, yeah.
Ready to rumble? Ready to rumble?
And overrated movies. That was another one. Like movies we thought were overrated or underrated.
There's a lot of them.
We thought about that, and that's pretty much it. Something that catches an interest, and sometimes we try to give you guys obscure movies that we think you'll enjoy that you don't know about, like Samurai Cop. Nobody knows that, but it's so damn bad that it's one of the best intentional comedies of all time. So, yeah, we try to like throw out suggestions for you guys to have a good time, and with our experiences and the way we talk about stuff, we kind of like. I've actually had a few people say, you know what, I used to hate this movie, but now I like it because I heard what you guys say, or dude, I fucking hate this movie more after hearing what you guys say. So we've been making impacts like that. I mean, we got like 300,000 views in our whole channel already, which is crazy. So that's that.
I would say, honestly, we also pick movies due to the fact that like we could be arguing about it, the movie itself, while in the text. So it's like multiple text messages going back and forth. That is where Blair Witch came from. It was a movie we were arguing about, and I'm like, it ended up just becoming an episode because like it was literally so like split that we needed to like just, you know what, we got to get this reaction, we got to get this out. So we got it out there. Like, yes, like we got to see both sides from 4 different perspectives, pretty much. Like, it was cool to see. Like, I got to see the information more. It still makes me hate the movie, but but it pretty much that's how it works out. Like, we could be talking about random movies, and like if all of a sudden it sparks a conversation between the 3 of us, we'll end up seeing like if it'll feel like. Take for instance, Die Hard. We put out around Christmas. It's a Christmas movie, so we tried putting it out. Halloween 3, the Halloween episode, and Rocky Horror, we did in one day, fucking 6 hours of film, and we ended up putting that out all around Halloween.
Powered through that.
That was a rough day.
Yeah.
I think that was like the one that broke the camel's back. Where we're just like, this is it for the time being. We're gonna do.
We're wiped.
I'm done. And it was fun. Like even the reactions we give each other, like Colin said in one of the prior questions, was they don't know what's coming from the other person. So it's like when I would start laughing so bad during Exorcist, that's a real thing. Like I think that fucking Pazuzu is the funniest fucking thing. It's a demon, it's a shitty name. And
Pazuzu.
So it's like,
that was really scary at one point.
I think that's one thing where the sequel wrecked it for me. Like finding out this demon that possessed Reagan, and then all of a sudden you find out its name in the sequel. It's like, oh. But it's not like, oh, we're gonna do this movie, blah blah. Dude, we could say we could be doing this movie. Like we've been talking about RoboCop for 4 months. It's not happening yet because it's like we're trying to fit the schedule and trying to like it's
The Crow. That's another one we've been talking about.
We started talking about doing that during Showgirls because we put the correlation between those 2 movies together, and I think one of us said that isn't that a dude that gets shot in the dick and
Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah,
Verhoeven directed Showgirls. He directed
RoboCop. Yep.
Well, it's been almost a year at this point that we've been talking about doing this movie. So eventually it's going to happen. Like we were also talking about doing a anniversary episode for Showgirls, but doing Showgirls 2.
Yeah, pennies from heaven.
Listen, if you just saw their faces, that is what I'm on the inside just burning up, ready to fucking scream because I only saw the trailer and
I'm dreading that movie more than the Fog remake. Showgirls 2, pennies from heaven.
Trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, all right. This is how bad Showgirls 2 is. This is just from the trailer. Samurai Cop's better.
Yeah.
I that's kind of iffy for me.
Yeah.
That was so bad. Like, I can't even like explain. Like watching the trailer for a movie that's bad. I think they're on the same level of shittiness. So I can't say like this is gonna look better, this is gonna look better. No, they both look like shit. Like even watching Samurai Cop, I've seen Samurai Cop multiple times. My wife still hates me.
She hates me more.
I think so, dude. She might stab you in your fucking.
I think she's tapping outside my window now, actually.
But yeah, it's not. We don't have a set schedule yet. Some movies we already have planned ahead, so it's like we're trying to get a schedule more set on what is to come, so it makes it easier for us. Like sometimes we only watch the movie the day before, so like trying to get our schedules to fit where we can watch a movie, get all the information, and kind of work our way. It's like, oh shit. I think the last one we did was Knives Out. I ended up watching that movie that morning before they showed up. So
wow.
Just like, oh shit.
And some days we take 5 pages of notes.
Dude, I'm still can't believe this 5 pages of notes.
I have proof. I have the document saved.
After we started taking notes, I actually took a notebook, and was writing everything in it. Because like it's easier for me to keep track of like what we've already done, what I can actually bring up, like, even when we're talking during the podcast, I'll actually put marks on what you guys have already stated, so I'm not repeating. So it's like, it makes it a lot easier on me too, because you see me, you've heard me, I should say, get on these rants, and I forget. Like, dude, I forget that this whole rant has happened until they start quoting me. I kid you not. They start quoting me, and I'm like, I don't remember saying this. The whole rant was in
You were so angry.
Yeah,
Like you blacked out.
Showgirls. I totally forgot I said any of that shit. And you're like quoting me. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So I literally had to go back to that rant. I'm like, oh shit, man. I don't.
Like drunken recall.
Yeah.
Yo, if you think quoting you and you blacking out from it's bad, you want to see your facial expression.
I can't. I'm not, like, I'm distracted right now while we're talking. I'm looking at YouTube. Also, I see myself in the corner. I'm like, shit, my arms are all over the fucking place.
Dude, we have enough to like make an entire book of memes and GIFs with just your facial reactions.
The Showgirls one, though, when I said psychoanalyze the movie, I just saw this.
Dude, I remember sitting there with my hands in my. It's just like you said that. I'm like, no.
Sorry.
Oh my god.
What's the next question we got?
Yeah,
All right, here's a good one. Who are your favorite actors, directors, and comic book characters? Mine, first two that started it off for me were Tim Burton and Quentin Tarantino. I think Tim Burton's really lacking nowadays, though. But he was, man, back in the day, he just kicked ass. I mean, from Pee-wee to Beetlejuice to Batman. I have a problem now that he's not doing a lot of unoriginal. He's not doing more original stuff, I should say. Mm-hmm. But he's still very stylistic, and I absolutely love his art. It's unique. When you see his stuff, you know it's a Tim Burton movie. That's another thing that makes his Batman movie stand out. Well, both of them, actually. I mean, even though, like, style-wise, they're both very different, but I love his art. I also, I really enjoyed Johnny Depp, too. He was another guy, though, who's now drifted off, and I hear, unfortunately, he has some personal issues, but I learn in life to respect the talent, not the person. So, because even a lot of times, celebrities, they put on a show in front of the cameras to be like, hey, aren't we cool? But then really you find out later on that they're doing stuff that they shouldn't do, and I just find it absolutely disgusting, and it's like, okay. So, yeah, but he was definitely one of the main actors that I really looked up to, because there was a time there where he could just do anything and everything. He was so versatile, and he was big into, like, putting on makeup and costumes. He was, like, so into the Hollywood movie atmosphere, and that's what I really liked. Like, Johnny wasn't afraid to put on makeup, put on costumes, go to, like, weird lengths and extremities and stuff. Because it's a movie, and I think that's what you should do. That's movie magic. If you have the technology and the ability to make something unreal become real, and then make it believable, then the movie's doing its job. You don't have to have, like, all sorts of artsy angles and colors all the time to make it great, like a lot of films do. But I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just think you can just tell an amazing story with just being straightforward, saying, like, here's some amazing costumes, here's some amazing makeup, here's some amazing acting, here's great camera work, lighting, music. Of course, music is such a huge part of movie making as well. I mean, movie making is a lot like football, where the director is the head coach, the set is the arena, your costumes are your uniforms, your main actor is the quarterback, so your other actors are going to bounce back and forth off of them, and of course your guys behind the scenes, like the lighting, the sound, the music, they're your assistant coaches, and it's all a team effort. There's no one person in a movie. I mean, yeah, you get standout performances, but it's still a great product is a complete collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a damn what anybody says. It's bullshit. It's all a team.
Oh, that's a good analogy. Oh, yeah.
And Tarantino, I absolutely love Tarantino stuff. I mean, I think Pulp Fiction is one of the greatest movies of all time. I absolutely love Kill Bill, and I really get his storytelling. And he's another guy who's not afraid to take stuff over the top because it's a movie. You know, let it be entertaining. I can get it if you're not into it, if that's not your thing, you like realism. Hey, that's fine. But if you got a weapon that can like do something amazing, use it. If you got a piece of paper and you know that you have more than like different colors, or paintbrushes and pencils and markers, use them. And it doesn't matter. Make it different. Make it be unique. Put your own label on it and make people go, that's this guy's. And that's another reason why I really like their stuff. I think there are some other great actors and directors out there right now that I really like, but those are the main guys that I grew up with, and that's how I feel about them. I also learned that it's really hard to have a favorite anymore because they're all unique and different. They all have their own style.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as comic book movies go, Tim Burton's Batman always going to be number one on my list. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is going to be another one. I actually think that's very underrated, and it's bullshit that it doesn't have a 4K special edition release, because that movie is a lot better than what people give it, or critics, I should say, however you want to say it, give credit for. And I think it should be out there to be, and that's a perfect example of like bringing the unimaginative or the unbelievable come believable, and they did an amazing job at it. Yeah, that's mine.
Nice. I know growing up, it was always Steven Spielberg's movies for me. Growing up, any movie that guy made, I was there, because he made some of the most fascinating and unique films that have stood the test of time, and they still do, and he's still around. But when I was a kid, it was just movie magic and gold. I mean, maybe I didn't have any aspirations to become a filmmaker or actor at that time, but as a young child, I was glued to the screen with anything that man put on the big screen, because he knew what it took to make gold on screen. He knew what it took to basically take something out of the novel or an original idea and make the best movie possible. That's what he did. And his movies still stick with me. I'm a huge fan of Ready Player One that came out in 2018. That was a movie designed, tailor-made for Spielberg to direct. And I'm glad that he was the guy to make that movie. Love the book, love the movie. In terms of actors growing up, this might be a surprise to some people, but the one actor that actually made me want to be an actor was Al Pacino. I mean, that guy, he was just wild in anything that he did. I see that guy on camera and I say, this is a guy who's having fun. This is a guy who's having fun in the most comedic role, the most dramatic role, the most sinister role, when he's playing the devil in The Devil's Advocate, or a football coach in Any Given Sunday, or a blind guy in Scent of a Woman, or hell, even a cop in Serpico. This is a guy that's having fun constantly on film. And I said to myself, I want what you got, man. I want to have fun doing what you're doing right now. And I was involved in, stage productions in grade school, and I had no thinking I'm not going to be an actor when I get older. This is just something to pass the time. But then as I keep watching his movies, I'm like, I got to give it a shot. This just looks like too much damn fun to have, and I got to have it. So I went out for it. And in terms of actors that I love seeing today, where if it's a film or a Broadway production, I'm there. Anything with Michael Fassbender, Tom Hardy, or Christian Bale, I'm there. In terms of actors, I'm there. Actresses, when it comes to Gal Gadot or Rooney Mara, anything that those two actresses are in, I want to see it. I really do. I mean, yeah, I know we've talked about the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Believe me, it wasn't her fault. I think it was the incompetence of the director and the writer. I think she was just doing her best to act around a very shitty script. That's my 2 cents about her performance in that. In fact, I remember reading that this was a role that almost made her quit acting entirely because of her experience in that movie. I'm like, I'm sorry that happened to you, but you got talent, and I wanted to see what else she was doing. And then she was in movies like The Social Network and movies like Her, and then she blew me away with her rendition of Lisbeth Salander in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. She owned that role. I'm like, my God, you got some serious talent, girl. Get it. And in terms of comic book characters, like I said, Daredevil, The Punisher, in terms of, like brooding dark heroes. And then there's the more, lighter side, like Captain America. Like, for example, I love Captain America, The Winter Soldier. I think that's a great sequel. I love The Dark Knight. I really love the new Thor Ragnarok movie. I can't wait for Thor Love and Thunder to come out. In terms of comic book movies are coming out. Taika Waititi, he's a great upcoming director. Anything he makes, I'm there. In terms of other directors, new directors like James Wan, Mike Flanagan, anything those two guys make, I'm going to get my butt in the seat and see it in theaters. There's a lot of good potential out there. And these guys, they got something special about them. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
You always make it fucking hard to follow you.
Oh my God. Should I let you talk next time first?
No, fuck it. But honestly, you guys hear me talk about how much I hate so many movies, and there's very few and far between nowadays that I'm actually enjoying, because it's painful to watch. So, but honestly, the stuff that's sticking out to me now it's more or less what the people are putting into the movies. Sometimes the story is amazing, but the production sucks. So it kind of takes away from the movie. But the one director, writer that actually is sticking out to me is Guillermo del Toro. His movies, he is such a monsters, practical effects guy. I love just seeing his movies because the story's amazing, the shots are amazing. I think his worst movie is Pacific Rim. Come on, you're telling me monsters and robots? I'm fucking sold, man. I'm fucking my little.
That was a fun movie.
Ready to watch movie. But that is the one guy that I'm always gonna stick with, because his early stuff's amazing. I became a big Ron Perlman man. Wow, Ron Perlman fan because of him. Hell, dude, Hellboy is probably one of the best comic book movies out there. It actually brings horror and action together. The story's amazing. I really can't even say anything bad about it. I could try, it would be nitpicking, but I would say even James Gunn's stuff, his stuff's actually been really good. I really enjoyed Slither. As much as everyone hates it, it's actually just a funny fucking movie. I see it for what it is. It's a practical effects monster alien movie.
It's a good time.
Yeah, there's no point to it. Am I gonna say, oh, it was an amazing movie? No, it's a fun movie to watch. Then he goes on and does fucking Guardians of the Galaxy, and wow, Marvel's cool. This weirdo over here picked up him to do this weirdo bunch over here. Cool, I'll watch it. And you said his name, was it Taika Waititi?
Taika Waititi, yeah.
And I'm actually realized that he just did Thor recently. Actually, I would say today. But I was it caught me off guard because I'm yo, that was probably the best out of the 3 Thor movies, and I didn't realize how funny it was.
Oh, yeah.
And and then last year's Jojo Rabbit, which really blew me away because I'm what the fuck is winning an Oscar for a Hitler movie? I'm there's no fucking way that you're winning a movie, an Oscar for a fucking Hitler movie.
Did you say Heil Hitler?
It's the funniest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. But it is something different. There's not one thing that we're talking about that even that, I was just like surprised to see. Like that is like one movie that stuck out for me last year. Like out of everything that's come out in the past couple of years, like that was like the biggest one for me. It's the best comic book movie. I've already mentioned it, so Hellboy would be probably the best comic book movie for me. Because like Batman, Tim Burton's Batman's amazing, but I can't copy Colin because I feel like I fucking.
But that's what you love, man.
Yeah, sir.
You're not
Yeah.
copying me. That's where your heart is.
Honestly, most of the DC movies are amazing. I'm sorry for Ryan Reynolds' shitty fucking rendition of Green Lantern, but he made up for himself with Deadpool.
Yeah.
I don't have any favorite actors because like they've changed over time. People are shitty. Actors get shitty, so it's like whatever. I more or less look at how the movies play out, like the stories. If they have multiple sequels, like come on, man. I've seen a lot of movies that have like 10, 11 sequels. I say fucking what? James Bond's at what, Bond 25 this year? I've watched them all.
I think so, yeah.
Honestly, I probably have seen more shitty movies because like I am a big
I can attest to that.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Kane Hodder's movies. And, like actually meeting him for the first time and having him choke you out is probably the worst decision you'll ever make in your life, but it's so fucking cool.
Kane Hodder, man.
Jason just choked me the fuck out.
We have proof.
Yeah.
Do you have video footage?
No, we got pictures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I pretty much just threw everything at you guys. So it's like all just.
That's all. Hey, yeah.
No,
That's great.
I mean, no, you're spot on with that. And another person I forgot to mention was Madeline Kahn.
Oh shit, man.
She's. I think it's a travesty that she's actually like forgotten now. For anybody who doesn't know, Madeline Kahn was in movies like What's Up, Doc? Paper Moon. She was in a lot of Mel Brooks movies like Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But of course, a movie that we all love is Clue. And she played Mrs. White. It has that scene where she goes, "Yes, I killed her, and the flames." I mean,
flames.
But another thing is, she could be serious. She could be funny as hell. She was one of the funniest women ever. And she also was like great on stage. I mean, there was like nothing Madeline Kahn couldn't do. I think she's very inspirational to a lot of aspiring women out there. And I really recommend anybody like check out her albums, check out anything that she was in because I mean, she was just absolutely awesome.
Her musical number in Blazing Saddles. Oh, I love her song in that movie.
No, dude, History of the World Part 1, where she's like, no, yes.